the YouTube analytics.
Emulate the taste of like non-chicken nuggets. So these nuggets are made from chicken, but they're made to emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
Oh, that's much better.
Edit all the blather out of your videos because my time is very precious.
Oh, that's fire.
Make it less teal and more
Cerulean? Sure.
Replace your background with something more fun? The cold void of outer space.
Let's boost that sound quality. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Emulate the taste of non-chicken nuggets. Dope.
It needs more style. It needs more clips, more gifs, more. Well, I might have made it too gnarly.
Welcome, Marcelo. What's up, man?
What's up, Erin? How you doing?
Ready to do some multi-track sequence editing with you today.
Hell yeah. Let's get at it.
Yeah, thanks everybody who's joining us. We are talking editing interviews or projects with multiple speakers. So of course you can put in the chat where you're tuning in from, but we'd also love to know what's your project you're working on. What brought you in here? Are you a podcast host? Are you a professor? Are you a marketer? What's your first thing you're throwing in going, I have multiple camera angles or audio sources in one project? Tell us in the chat what you're doing. Shout out Alex, who is helping us in the YouTube chat so that we can get your answers, feedback, questions. We will throw those up on screen. There will be a huge chunk of time for Q&A as well. Everything is live. Today is...
And we lost him. It's live. So every now and then a technical difficulty happens.
Somebody had to move me to this side of the screen. This is my better side anyways.
Wait, this happened last time. We gotta get any technical difficulties out of the way early on and we're good to go.
Yes. So whether you're joining us we are live on YouTube, X, or Twitter, whichever you prefer, LinkedIn, and we're trying Instagram and TikTok. It says we're on there. I would love to hear from somebody on one of those platforms if you are watching on our TikTok or our Instagram lives. We're just trying to be everywhere you are so we can help you. More Marcelo is always a good thing.
I'll take it.
And there's always somebody that's way on the other side of the globe. We kind of think in Pacific time, and there's always somebody who's like, I'm in Australia and it's 3 a.m. So if you haven't told us who's going for like the crazy time zone award, put that in the chat. In addition to what project you're working on. Nice. Okay, so let's get to what we're going to learn about today and show you as Marcelo's getting shout outs in the chat. So the topic, like we said, is you have some sort of a project, whether you recorded it in Descript or you're bringing it in, doesn't matter. What we're going to do is edit those. So you might have multiple camera angles or multiple audio sources. It could be, I think, Marcelo, correct me if I'm wrong, up to 10 cameras plus 2 screen shares can be recorded in Descript Rooms, right?
That's correct. Yeah, 10 and 2.
So then the question is, what do I do with that afterwards? How do I edit something that's not just me or not just one camera angle? And we're going to demo everything for you. So use the chat to ask questions. If we go too fast, there is the recording posted. We'll send you the follow-up link afterwards. But if it's live, so if there's something you want to see or go a step further, put that in the chat and we will bring some of those questions up on screen when there's time for those. There's always help.descript.com. So if you're more of a give me an article or a static frozen in time image of how to do something, check that out. And all of the features we talk about are on the help.descript.com website and getting updated daily because things change. So here's our agenda. What are the features you need to know to edit multi-track recordings in Descript and work with them to create your final product? We're going to show you that. Marcelo's going to cook live in the editor. And then we have a whole chunk of time for Q&A. So let's get to it. We want you to leave with the confidence that you can do some of the same stuff Marcelo is and not be intimidated when you see a sequence that has multiple tracks in it. We want you to be excited by that instead of anxious. So here are some of those key features. The first one, in order to make everything else make sense, is the transcription. So one of the core features of Descript is whatever media you drop in, if there's words to it, someone talking, it's going to give you the text as the primary view, not the timeline. There is a timeline, but we usually start with the transcript, and a lot of our editors are more comfortable there than they are in a timeline. We're also going to have speaker labels. So as I'm talking right now, it's going to label the paragraphs of text coming from my audio track and even color code those, just like you see with Andrew on the screen here. Especially when there's multiple tracks, that just helps you tell like who's talking, who said that, how can I cut that out or align this over here. So it's one of the fundamental things we have to know is we're transcribing our media and we're applying speaker labels, which Descript essentially prompts you when you drop it in, and it's pretty seamless to do. So the other one is text-based editing. If you've done any editing in Descript, this is the view that most people use most of the time. Like a Google Doc, you can delete text and there goes the audio and video that was associated with it. Or you could take a paragraph there of Ramdy speaking, cut and paste it just like you would do in Microsoft Word, and it's going to move the media that corresponds with the text without having to mess with a blade tool or any of the traditional video editing interfaces. Next is a layout. If this is something that you really want to go deeper in, next week we have a live webinar with Marcelo and I. That's all about layouts. But it is part of today. And essentially what a layout is in Descript language is a repeatable format for your media. You want an intro, you want a title screen, you want a screen share side by side with a talking head video. It lets you replicate the layout on screen, things like background, fonts, caption styles, logos, anything like that. If you make it once, layouts allow you to repeat it without recreating all the effort that went into making it the first time. And we have a bunch of them pre-made for you. So you probably don't have to make your own. You can just use ones that are there. And then all of your things are on brand and consistent in your projects. The next one is Underlord. If you choose to use it, it lives in the bottom right of your user interface, and you'll see the little robot icon. If you prefer the LLM chatting back and forth way of using a video editor, Underlord is basically our app piping in ChatGPT, Claude Gemini to do edits and help you work with your project instead of manually clicking, dragging, cutting, and adding things. It also works through the buttons in the sidebar, which Marcelo will show you some examples, so you don't always have to prompt to get Underlord to help you. We think of it as it's like your intern or your editor assistant, so you're more of the director in your project. And then for more specific, detailed edits and cuts, especially when you have multi-tracks like today's topic, you can drag up the timeline and get back to the waveform and seeing the traditional interface that you would edit audio and video projects with. But today we're going to have multiple tracks on there. And then high level for a lot of us here, a sequence. And we've had lots of discussions about how to conceptualize what a sequence is. But basically, here's a screenshot from the live project we're going to do. We have 2 camera angles that each have an audio of 2 different people. We're going to lay those over each other and align them in the timeline so that they match up. And if I cut out part of what the woman on the left is saying, it's also going to cut out the part where the man on the right was not talking, and it stays aligned. So a sequence is just a way to put multiple pieces of media into the track, the timeline, in an aligned way, so they're stuck together, essentially. Is that a good explanation, Marcelo?
I would say so. It's usually like the, some food analogy to put things together like a sandwich, or imagine a Zoom call. But yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised it took us 10 minutes to reference a cake, but there will be many cake analogies today. So with that being said, you're still here. You want to know, what do I do with this project? Or maybe you want to start a podcast or a show, but you're intimidated by multiple speakers and tracks going in. Marcelo is going to show us what we're going to do with them. So let's get his screen up and us in the corner.
Awesome. All right. So one thing that I want to start off with first is our recording, or like getting media into Descript. Erin gave us a great introduction on the areas of Descript that we'll be looking at, and we mentioned earlier Rooms. Now, you don't need to record in Rooms to utilize multi-track, but with Descript, it's a lot easier to have that automatically processed. Whether you are bringing media in from like a Zoom or a different video conferencing tool, or you're recording directly into Descript, you can have sequences created. And again, like Erin mentioned, sequences are the files or the speakers in our call aligned. Here, I'm just going to quickly show Descript Rooms, or how we got to this point, but this content was recorded in Descript Rooms. So you can see down here on the bottom of the screen, there is a record option. You have the ability to record directly in, but here at the very bottom of the screen, we have record with others. Recording with others is our Rooms feature. By clicking on that, you'll open a separate web page for a video conference call. Once that recording is complete, though, you'll have your files automatically dropped into your project and have speakers, or a file per speaker here. Here's kind of what we're building up towards. I'm just going to play a moment of this back so we get an idea of what we're looking at.
So here's the thing. Taking a daily multivitamin won't directly lower your healthcare expenses, but it can create so much value for your body. What we have here at Lionshare call your ROAR that could deliver a significant indirect cost reduction.
Cool. So we have, again, just like a standard back and forth between 2 speakers. Here we have Angie and Rem on screen. But first thing we want to do is, when you are bringing media into Descript, you're going to immediately see, like Erin mentioned, our full transcription on the left-hand side here. Here we can see everything that is transcribed, but right above our transcription on the top left, we have our speaker labels. When you use Descript Rooms, you enter a name when you join the room, and that becomes your speaker label. So for Rooms, it's a lot easier for applying speaker labels. But if we added these files into Descript just raw, like we imported them, we can run speaker detection on the right-hand side of the screen under the Projects tab. If I click on projects, I'll see a full list of my compositions and files on the right-hand side of the screen. And each file I can run speaker detection on. Here, if I select unsure, this is going to run detection on this file, and I'm going to detect how many speakers there are, and then I'm going to label them. That way, whenever we recognize this speaker, it will label them as whatever title I put onto their, like on that name. Since we've already run this here, I'll like ignore this for now, but again, that's where we can run detect speakers. Here, once that speaker identification is done, we can click identify speakers here. And then here, we'll get some clip previews of the
So are
speakers.
we using the Rooms recording or no?
And then
It's
here,
just-
we see the behind the scenes of some some clips before. But here's where we can label the speakers as and, rem, or anything else here. You'll get a little preview again here.
So are we using the
And then again, you can reference that for naming the speakers. Now, once we have named the speakers, we can control speaker labels as well as the colors that are assigned to them or the AI speech that's assigned to them by clicking on the speaker label here on the top left of that text. When I click on the speaker label, you'll see the ability to select one or the other. Let's say there's maybe some overlapping speech. Maybe me and Erin are in the same conference call, but we're sitting in the same room, and I'm a little bit louder, so maybe my voice is picked up by Erin's microphone, and maybe there's a mismatch of speaker labels. Right here, we can manually override speaker detection. So here, if instead of Angie, this is Rems, or maybe even again, this is Marcelo, a third speaker in here, I can manually adjust the speaker label from here. Additionally, on the right-hand side of each speaker label, you're going to see a little like 3-dot ellipses. This is where you can see a couple additional options that come through with speaker labels. So by default, some colors are selected, but let's say Angie here's favorite color is not green. We can change their speaker label color. This is, again, just like a visual indicator of when they are speaking in the project. This also is indicated in the timeline. I know we might not be looking at the timeline a lot today in terms of like speaker labels, but here's a very easy way to visually like see who is speaking when. Since Angie's color is green, I can see whenever the timeline is green, I know she's speaking. Scrolling a little bit further, Rems is orange, so I can see visually the spread of speech. But let's just change a color here so we can see what that looks like. And then here, I can also, let's take this one, make that yellow. Is that yellow? Am I colorblind? Oh my goodness. I don't know about that. I think you might be muted, maybe. But one other thing that we can do here, or the two other things that we can do here is like rename this in case I misspelled initially. Here's where I can enable speech generation. For those of you that don't know, Descript has a text-to-speech tool called AI Speakers. If I wanted to, I can enable speech generation here, and then I can have Angie read this script so that I can use text-to-speech to have Angie's, whatever Angie said in the call altered. But there's where I would enable that. And then lastly, let's say I wanted to remove Angie's face. Let's say she didn't like the makeup that she did that day. We can replace her with an avatar entirely. So here we can see assign avatar to Angie and go through the avatar flow. But that's a lot for speaker labels. The last thing I want to show as well here is replacing with. Again, let's say like someone was incorrectly labeled. You can always swap out one entirely or remove them from the project if one was accidentally added additionally. Cool. That's a lot about speaker labels. Erin, you think I missed anything?
No, while I was muted and attempting to talk, I was going to say the yellow looks more brown to me.
Okay,
so.
cool. Thank you. All right, because like sometimes I'm like, man, did I not go to color theory school or something? Because like I don't know if this is brown for sure. This is red, but is that pink? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not a designer. I'm an audio guy, so don't pay attention to my eyes. Maybe my glasses aren't working. Anyway, but cool. That's all for speaker labels. Now let's look at some like text editing. Now that we've labeled our speakers, let's do some like quick action editing. So with today's session, we're assuming that you might know a little bit about text correction already, but just to quickly show, when I do edits in Descript, all of this is transcribed. All of this text is transcribed and aligned to my speech. If something is incorrectly or correctly spelled, I can alter the spelling of that by selecting a word and clicking regenerate or clicking correct, and I can alter the text there. But if I need to like go right into editing, I want to look at some quick ways of like removing sections of this video that like I might not need, right? So let's go into like a slightly unedited version of this project and see what we can do. Cool. Here, what we're going to do on the right-hand side of our screen, we're going to see our AI Tools button. We're going to click on AI Tools, and we're going to see a few options or a few groupings of AI tools here on the right-hand side. Just to go over the sections, we have sounding good, looking good, repurpose, publish, and write. For sounding good could mean improving the audio quality, like using a tool called Studio Sound, where we would use Studio Sound to decrease like the background noise. I don't know if you heard it earlier, but there was like 3 cars driving down my street playing the loudest music that I could hear through my headphones. And if you heard that, my bad. Also, Studio Sound would remove that. So if you have any background noise, like the cat meowing, the fan loud, or again, just like the general hum of room tone in a standard building, Studio Sound can remove that. But instead of sounding good like the audio quality, maybe I want this to sound punchier, like a more concise video. So I can use tools like remove retakes, shorten word gaps, or my favorite, remove filler words to take some quick actions to editing the transcript. So if I click remove filler words, what this is going to do is, since we have transcribed every bit of text or every word in this video call, we can identify when filler words are used and remove them quickly. If I click remove filler words, it's going to search through my transcription and find any of the filler words listed here. Depending on your subscription level, you might see different filler words on this list, but you'll notice here we have like, and all that. You can even deselect words. So I myself, I use the word like incorrectly and correctly interchangeably every day since I have started existing. When I do remove filler words, I usually deselect the word like because I want to go through and spot check when I say the word like to know if I did that right or wrong, right? So the same idea here, I can deselect like, and then I know I don't ever need to keep or like those are always going to be removed. So I can deselect like. Now that I say that, I've heard myself say that's 4 times since. Anyway, okay, cool. I was raised on rocket power, so I got a lot of. Yeah. All right. So I can remove filler words here. If I click remove filler words, now it's going to, on the right-hand side, quickly show me each filler word in my content. Here on the left-hand side, each filler word is highlighted so I can see how that breaks down. And then I can either remove all of the words at once, or on the right-hand side, I can skip a filler word. So if I had like selected, I could skip the correct iteration of like and then remove the incorrect one. One quick Marcelo note is here we have the ability to delete filler words, but also there's the ability to delete and replace with word gap, remove from transcript, or ignore. You can delete and replace with a word gap if you want to keep like the same pacing of the call, but remove a filler word. You can remove it from the transcript so that you keep the filler word, but it's not in the captions. So sometimes you might want to keep the natural feel of the conversation, but not like have the word like show up in your captions, right? Or what I do personally is I ignore filler words. Ignoring, instead of deleting and like removing something entirely from your script, ignoring will put a strike through the word and will skip that for playback, but you can still visibly see what's there. So in the case of me saying like correctly or incorrectly, I could just ignore all filler words, but I could visibly see still where the word like is used. I'll just run this as an example, but here I have ignored. These 2 and uhs are highlighted. If I remove, you now see they're struck through. So when I play this back,
her name in here is Angie. Let's just go.
Cool. And so now that is skipped over on playback. And then if I now know I want to remove that entirely, I can just click this delete key. Or if I want to bring that back, like if it was the correct usage of the word like, which I just did right there, you can undo and bring back that filler word.
Yeah, and when Rem is talking, because Rem had that filler word, and you ignore it or delete it, what happens to that piece of media from Angie's feed?
Yeah, so and we'll get to this when we're talking more about the sequences, but because we have aligned their 2 files in the sequence editor, both that like the timing of when Rem says is removed from both Angie and Rem's video content.
Gotcha. Which the sequence will make sense when we see that.
Exactly. We'll see that put together. Cool. All right. So we've looked at some text-based editing over here, some correction. We looked at AI tools to remove filler words. Now let's look at some other quick actions we can take. So here on the right-hand side, we have our AI tools, but a little bit further down, we have elements, captions, and media. We're going to zoom in on captions for a moment. Captions are a one-click option to add captions, exactly what you think they are, to the totality of your video. At the top of the screen, we have the ability to add captions to this scene or all scenes. But here I'm going to select captions for all scenes because I want these captions across the whole of my video. When I select captions, we'll see them appear on screen. Drum roll. And here, now with the transcript I have on the left-hand side, plus the captions, I now have these captions showing one for one, whatever is in the transcription, right? So playing this back.
Here's Angie. Let's just go with that.
Perfect. Shout out Brandon, a member of our team here. Big love. I mean, Rem.
Yeah.
Cool. But that's captions. And what's really cool with captions and with any of the media that you see on screen here, you'll notice when I'm selecting something, a little mini menu appears right above it. That mini menu is just an abridged properties panel. You can click on properties on the right-hand side to see like the full context of everything that you're selecting. But if you wanted to just make a quick adjustment to something, like for captions specifically, I like these captions, but I don't like the yellow that's there, right? So I can change this to our new Descript red. Or if I wanted to, I can also adjust like the font, whatever it may be, right? So I can alter this and really customize this to my heart's content. Also here on the right-hand side, we have effects and animations. So if you want to have the captions like fade in on the screen or like slowly emerge or ease on the screen for some of my video editors, you can do so. Again, captions and like everything else in Descript, these are something that you can build off of and are non-destructive. So you can, take what Descript provides and move forward or go backwards if, you went a little too aggressive on a visual adjustment. Tight. Anything else on captions? If not, I'd love to show maybe how we can zoom even further out and have AI assist us with finding some clips and generating some social content.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, you'll notice that Marcelo brought in a default set of captions and then tweaked it. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to spend 20 minutes getting your captions to look good, just find one that's the closest to what you want to end up with, and then go to your mini menu and customize it. And remember that all those can be saved as layouts, which makes them repeatable with one click in the future.
Exactly. We're going to talk about layouts as well in a second, but this is one thing that you'll see us mention consistently is like, hey, Descript provides a lot of like defaults for you, but those aren't set in stone. You're not stuck with, the default Descript pack, right? As creatives, we all want to make it our own. We want to customize it and put my brand colors and put my logo and all that on there. And with Descript, you can absolutely do that and then save that for future uses. So it's even faster and easier to go from, we just finished our recording to here is my branded content. Cool. All right, let's look at using our AI editing assistant, Underlord, as well as our AI tools button to find some clips. So on the right-hand side of our screen, we have the AI tool section. We talked about sounding good. Let's scroll down a little bit here into the repurpose section where we can look at creating clips. I'm going to show two different ways for creating clips. One, we're going to look at AI tools, and the second, we'll look at Underlord, our AI editing assistant. So first off, I'll go to AI tools and select create clips. And here's where we're getting one of our first looks at layouts. Here I can pick the number of clips I want and the clip duration. But most importantly here, I have my layout. Now, layouts inside of Descript are like visual templates. It's the layout of the visuals on screen. So when I want to change the visualization of this content, I'll pick a layout that fits my needs. Here, I want to go to a social post, right? I want to take this nice interview and I want to make like a TikTok from it or something like that. So I'm going to pick a layout that has the framing that the content that I'm going for or the format that I'm going for works with. So I'll pick a landscape layout from our list here. Let's just do a regular zoom. Then my topic, we'll say, what did we say about healthcare? Boom. And I'll click submit. Now in a couple seconds, our AI tools feature is going to suggest to me, 3 to 5 clips of roughly 10 to 20 seconds with the content or the keyword that I suggested, and then using the visual layout that I picked. Here we have on the right-hand side those clips for me to quick view. By clicking on one, I can preview what this looks like.
Taking a daily multivitamin.
And here we have a layout that has a placeholder. Here I can add the media or replace the media and now select Angie's track to show up on screen. So with the layout that I picked, there is a media placeholder or a camera placeholder that I can use to swap out. And instead of that placeholder, now I can select who I am focusing on. The first track being Angie, or the second track, Brandon, i.e. Rem. And then I could do so for the totality of these clips or for any of these additional scenes that happen afterwards. So here, same idea. I know Rem is talking here, so I'll click Add Media, change source, and then select the speaker. Boom. And then here's one of those clips in action whenever this loads. Drum roll.
Taking a multivitamin every day can reduce inflammation, boost your energy, and not only help your immune system defend against common cold and stuff like the flu, but even more problematic illnesses like COVID or cancer.
And with something like studio sound, we can even improve that audio quality to make that a little bit better as well.
Can you show us the slider on studio sound? Because we had a question from Taniac7021 about just the settings and what that does when you adjust studio sound beyond the toggle.
Yeah. So like I mentioned earlier, in the properties panel is where we can see properties of whatever we are like selecting. And for us to get to studio sound, we want to select either the like the clip and then go to the properties panel here, or from the AI tools section, we can turn on studio sound. But here under audio effects is studio sound. When I click the slider on the right-hand side, I can adjust the intensity of the effect. So just to like peel back under the hood, studio sound is, again, a background noise removal and a vocal enhancer tool. When we use studio sound on a file, there is two files that now exist. The original file that is unedited, that has all of that background noise, right? Then a studio sound version of the file where we put the full 100% intensity effect on that file, and now there is no background noise. With this intensity knob that I have here, what I can do is I can increase or decrease the intensity of this, allowing me to pull back or blend the two files, my original and my full studio sound one. The reason someone might want to do that is that with studio sound, right, we're removing background noise, but the noise that's removed might sit in a similar frequency range as some of my vocal characteristics. So when you're removing that background noise, it's also removing in sometimes parts of human speech. And again, just depending on like the room noise / like your tonal frequency. This doesn't happen all the time, but like can happen. But by decreasing the intensity, we're pulling back that effect and bringing back in the original sound. So for me personally, like whenever I record, I know this room. I'm in here a lot doing these sessions or like general recordings, right? So I know for my voice and for this room, my studio sound intensity usually sits between 80 and like 85%. And I know that's consistent. You can go back to any of our webinars and see it's always 80 to 85%. But if you're in the same recording conditions over and over, I might suggest to play with the intensity of studio sound just to see if you can get it to feel better at a certain percentage or not. Again, like I'm around the 85%. That's just me, between the 80 and 85% to sound good. This recording, I would not probably just assume it's at 80 or 85%. I'd probably want to listen to it and adjust. These two speakers are in a generally like well noise treated room. So I would feel pretty safe putting this intensity at 100% because the room's pretty standard. But we had a customer way back that like recorded podcasts on the deck of a boat. There was always issues with that dude. Shout out to him. But like, there's like, you know, so there's, just be careful with your conditions. But if you put studio sound at 100% when you're on the deck of a boat, it's going to remove your voice because there's a lot of wind there that it's trying to get rid of, right? So it's going to cut out a little bit. By blending that intensity, we're getting, again, that natural feeling. So there's at least still that human element, and then removing any potential audio artifacting. Very long-winded answer, but I hope that gets the piece there. Studio sound is like one of my favorite features and one of our longest running flagship features. So I will harp on that for forever, but I think it's a very powerful tool. And knowing that you can pull back the intensity really enables people to like use that without worrying too much. Cool. Anything I miss? That's extensive enough.
No, I think crank it up until it doesn't sound like you anymore, and then you'll know your default percentage based on your recording setup. Because it might be off your phone outside is different than in your studio with your good condenser mic.
Well said. All right, cool. So we looked at, real quick, we looked at the AI tools for repurposing clips. Now let's introduce Underlord, our AI editing assistant, to do a similar task, but maybe more specific. So Underlord is the AI editing assistant that lives in the bottom right of your Descript project. If you remember Clippy, this is like Clippy's great grandson with a little bit more power, a little more horsepower. So with Underlord, we can do actions quickly or in bulk, or even assign tasks to Underlord. I'm like in this instance, I'm more of a creative director than I am an end editor, right? I can get Underlord to do specific actions for me or take editing, actions that I would do normally, but that might not, passing it to Underlord might save me some time, right? Instead of applying, going to my settings, going to my properties, then going to my studio sound audio effect, then decreasing or increasing the intensity, I can click one button here and apply studio sound to everything, right? These one-click Underlord actions allow me to quickly take action in any project I want. When I have a blank Underlord menu, there's a button at the top that says Browse Popular Templates. We'll just look at these for just a moment. But the browsing popular templates, all of these templates are saved Underlord prompts that you can use. One of our saved prompts here on the left-hand side is creating a social clip, right? So if you want more manual power to like set what clips do what, you can use our create social clips prompt, which gives quite a bit more context and a little bit of a back and forth between you and Underlord, right? With this prompt, this is saying, hey, ask me to provide a file, which we've done here. Step 2 is ask me what aspect ratio I want, right? Step 3 is what brand style do I want? Does this fit my branding, my icon? And then gives the Underlord the workflow to accomplish that task, right? So instead of going in this AI tools modal and picking a layout or whatever, I can use Underlord as like a creative partner or like a brainstorming partner and say, hey, I had an idea for the layout. I had an idea for the topic, but let's see what AI can come up with, right? Here, I can click Use Template, and now it's going to take this content and then create social clips. And then here on the left or right-hand side, you can see we're going back and forth with Underlord. Here, I want portrait. So again, instead of clicking through menus, I'm interacting back and forth with Underlord like an LLM. You'll probably hear someone at Descript at some point say Descript is as easy to edit as a Word doc, and I consider Underlord as easy to interact with as any LLM like ChatGPT or something like that. Under the hood, we have a lot of models ported into this. So again, it's very, very similar. Here it's asking, do I want to apply brand colors? Apply the brand colors from my brand studio. Brand Studio is a feature where we can put in our brand colors, fonts, logos. So now I'm asking Underlord to utilize that for setting up colors. Here it's saying, I have your colors. I'm ready to go. Then it's displaying for me those brand colors as well as the hex values, and then creating my clips. It's first going to make sure that it's cool with me doing that. So I have to approve and say like, hey, proceed. But here's where I can now confirm, here's the colors that it's picked. Here's the aspect ratio, and here's the layout pack that it assumes is best. And if I wanted to, as the creative lead, as the creative director, I can override the AI assumption here of layout, and I can pick a more specific one. Like here is our brand new Descript layouts. I'll click approve, and boom. Now we have an AI after going back and forth with me going forward. So just to show there's multiple, there's levels of editing with Descript, right? Everything that Underlord is doing, I can do manually, right? Underlord doesn't have access to any features or tools that I don't have, right? Just has a slightly different brain and no hands. It can edit maybe a little bit faster there. But the thing is, I could manually do all of this, right? Or zoomed out a hair, I can go to AI tools and have, a little hair more controlled there, but still kind of manual. If you want to kind of really take a step back, right now, in theory, I can either go get a cup of coffee, continue talking here in this webinar, whatever, but Underlord is taking the action for me while I conduct, and I could be doing 1 to 2, 3 projects at the same time, right? I do this in my real world right now. I'll have Underlord kind of go forward, and then I'll tab over to another project where I'm working on and have Underlord take these actions for me. Again, leaving me as a creative director rather than a sweaty sleeves rolled up editor, which I have been a lot of times in my life.
Yeah. And really, if you're an AI power user, the way that Marcelo just interacted with Underlord is basically the same thing as putting your agent in Cursor or Claude Code into planning mode.
Exactly.
And it's saying, show me the full plan before you actually go do anything. 1, because it's going to take your time. And 2, it's going to take your AI credits. And the last thing you want to do is give it this big, long task, and it's not what you wanted. So he confirmed that before he let it go do the real work.
Absolutely. Cool. I'll let that keep running. Anything else on Underlord? I want to maybe jump over to like smart transitions that and layouts here, and then go towards our sequences.
Do you want to show us the model picker real fast?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So here in Underlord, you'll notice this like this Rubik's cube. I called it a Rubicon yesterday, and I found out that that's a river and not this shape, but this Rubik's cube looking thing down here. If you click on this, here's where you have our model selection. So whether you're generating images, videos, or just like text back and forth interacting, there are multiple engines under the hood that make up the Underlord, right? And you can select here either auto, which is like Underlord's automatic brain, or any of these specific models. When you prompt Underlord, it's going to take your prompt and find out of all of these the best model to accomplish your task. But if for whatever reason you want to manually select a model, you can do so. I have been playing, just because earlier today I was playing with Opus 4.5, so that's what I have pre-selected. But everyone's default should be auto, and you can manually overwrite that if you so choose. Usually, though, Underlord's smart enough for you not to need to do that. But if you're doing image generation, this same icon would allow you to pick which video or image model you're using. If I go back to AI tools here and I click on like generate an image, if I click on this little guy, then I see here all of the models I can select, which is usually where I'm selecting more so. Maybe less for like Underlord model picking, but more so for like video and image generation. I'm very specific about what models I want because each model you pick has quite a bit of different output. But cool. And like while I've been talking, we're seeing Underlord do a bunch, right? Like this is creating 3 clips like and actively working pretty quickly. So really cool to see that. I'll put Underlord on pause so it doesn't jump around too much. But let's jump back up here into another one of these projects and let's look at changing layouts around. So okay, cool. So here we have our end result. This is what one of the content pieces that we put together that would look like if we wanted to, create like social clips. I'm just gonna move Underlord to the side. But here's what it would look like once, either Underlord or an AI editing assistant is finished up. What we can do here is we see the layout that was selected as a 2-speaker layout. But if I wanted to, right under the scene editor, or like the canvas is what's called in other tools, I'll see a little option for layout. If I click on layout here, I have a couple different layouts that I can select from. There's a couple different ways to get into layouts, but I just want to show the multiple ways that people can change which layouts are used in a project. So one is right under the canvas, I can change layout here. Second one is by clicking the thumbnail in the script. By selecting the thumbnail, I have a little button that says layout right above there. And then finally, on the right-hand side, on properties, again, in that expanded quote-unquote menu, I have the layout selector on top. Now, one thing you'll notice, whether I'm opening the properties panel or selecting the thumbnail in the script, you'll notice this transition or add transition button. Every layout inside of Descript comes with what we call smart transitions. Smart transitions are ways to have things automatically move around. So this is like if I have something on screen that moves from scene to scene, a smart transition would automatically move that from one region to another. Let's say I had the captions move from the center of the screen towards the bottom. A smart transition would smoothly animate the positioning of those captions from the center to the bottom of the screen. Just wanted to mention that really quickly because smart transitions come up a lot for people that are using layouts, and they might not know that layouts automatically have smart transitions there. So if you wanted to add a transition or adjust it, you can click on transitions here by adding one, or you can adjust the properties or settings of that transition or remove it entirely here. Cool. All right, that's most of our elements for up here. How do we feel about maybe looking in the timeline so we can align some sequences and make sure that these 2 speakers are saying the same thing at the same time?
Yeah, like how did we get to that where they're overlaid and say you have a podcast or an interview while one's speaking, you can see the other's feed interweaved with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we want to look at when we're to get these 2 files aligned, right? At the top of the session, we talked about either using rooms to record and having media directly dropped in, or importing media. If you're using rooms, when you're done with your recording, we'll automatically create, again, what's called a sequence to align those 2 files, or to have the 2 speakers stacked with each other. If you're importing files from another system like Zoom or something like that, we will suggest to you to create a sequence upon import. Also, if you needed to, on the right-hand side, you can manually create a sequence by clicking the plus button here to the right of the word files and creating a sequence here. Now, the reason we would want to have a sequence is to align two speakers or multiple speakers in one fashion. Now, let's look at inside of the sequence editor what that looks like. I can open the sequence editor either from the right-hand sidebar here under my sequence list, or I can double-click or right-click the clip in my timeline. But here is our sequence editor. For video and audio editors that use DAWs or NLEs, this might look pretty similar to what you are already using. This in the sequence editor is like a traditional multi-track kind of view. As we mentioned earlier, you can have up to 10 speakers and 2 screen shares in here. So if you needed to add additional speakers, you can click Add Track or Add Media here from the top right of the screen. But here we'll see similar to the properties or to the editor outside of the sequence editor, we'll see a timeline at the bottom. We'll see our editor or our video preview here on the right or on the center. We'll have our playback speed, our playback, and then our splitting clips here, our duration for video here. And then on the very right-hand side, we have info about our track as well as effects that we could apply to that track. So here, we'll also notice that studio sound is available. Earlier, when I applied studio sound, that was applying studio sound to both speakers at the same time. Since we're combining these two speakers into one sequence, I applied studio sound to the sequence, giving studio sound to both Ashley and Brandon, or like Rem and Amy here. But if I wanted to only apply studio sound to one speaker, let's just say to this bottommost one, I can apply studio sound on a per track basis by selecting the track, then clicking plus here, and now I'm giving audio effects to just one speaker instead of both. There's sometimes that you might want to do this, like, again, right now I'm in kind of like a bouncy noise room, right? There's not a lot of audio treatment going on here aside my dirty laundry on the floor to absorb a little bit of sound. Whereas Erin's room sounds a lot cleaner, right? We don't hear as much echoing, right? So in that case, I would probably want to apply studio sound to my track and not to Erin's. Or again, vice versa. If Erin's, I don't know if you have cats, but if you have like 5 cats right behind you, right, they're all meowing at the same time. You don't seem like a cat guy to me. Do you have a dog?
No, I have humans, man. I got kids.
Oh, you got kids? Never mind. All right, yeah, that's fine. But okay, so let's say you have 5 kids running around there. Just kidding. But like that's where we would apply again, like an effect to one and not the other. So we have the ability to do that here. And again, same kind of intensity knob that we saw earlier. I could increase or decrease the intensity here. And then here is the overall volume of the track. So I can increase or decrease, pardon me. I can increase or decrease the total volume of the track as well if I need to. Cool. So that's, again, like the iteration of the properties panel. Now let's talk about like aligning these speakers or like what edits I can make, like the fine tune adjustments, right? So here in my timeline or in my sequence editor, right, I have some back and forth at the start of the call between these two speakers. And then a little bit further on here, I can see they're kind of like overlapping in speech, right? Sometimes on a remote recording call, you might have a little bit of a desync in playback time, right? Like I'm a little bit delayed. Like I'll say something and Erin will hear it a second later, right? And that might cause in our recording some overlap in speech. Or like, sometimes Erin makes a really good joke and I chuckle for too long and I ruin the recording with my heinous laughter. But we can remove things like that from the timeline or from, again, the sequence editor with the same tools we would use in the timeline. So some of the functions that I'll be showing here can be done in the timeline as well, which we'll show in a moment. But here on the right-hand side of the sequence editor, I have the select. These are our advanced timeline tools, but I have the select, hand, blade, range, and slip tools. So for example, here on the first track, someone says, okay, over the second track speaker, and I want to remove that. I can use a tool like the range tool to click and drag over a section of this audio, click delete, and I have removed that from the audio entirely. That allows me to make sure that even if I'm sneezing over Erin saying something important, or these speakers are doing a little bit too much ad-libs and saying, yeah, after every sentence, right? We can adjust that without altering the total video or the sync of the two speakers. All we're doing here is removing one or two instances. Again, a sneeze, an affirmation that might be ill-timed. Anything like that, we can adjust that here without altering the synchronization of the two speakers. Cool. When I'm done with that, I can click done here and I'm back to my main editor. And now I can utilize the same timeline tools if I so choose to edit the summed video, right? So what I was just doing is making sure that both of these speakers, Angie and Rem, are aligned so that their conversation back and forth makes sense. Even if someone joins the call a minute or two late, we can always manually align it to make sure that the back and forth conversation still makes sense inside of the sequence editor. So again, the sequence editor is just for alignment. I wouldn't put in like sound effects into the sequence editor. I wouldn't put like my company logo as an element in the sequence editor. The sequence editor is really meant for two speakers or two or more speakers, right? But human speech alignment or video to audio alignment. Thinking like maybe I got a separate track for my audio and video. You can use the sequence editor to align multiple pieces of media that need to be played in synchronous.
Yeah.
You're going to hear like 12 different ways to explain sequences probably, but yeah.
I was going to say, in terms of the workflow, it's always best to start with aligned tracks in a sequence before you do something like your captions, because
100%.
you don't want to put captions on two files that are not aligned and there's, say, crosstalk or they're out of sync.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, let's say, if, we take this recording of this webinar, right? And my file, like Erin's, started the call before me and I am a little bit late. If I don't align these files, right? You'll have me and Erin talking over each other and the transcription will look crazy, right? Even though we can transcribe everything, we can't work magic between two people talking at the same time. If your ears can't process two people talking, it might be hard for, Descript transcription to show that easily, right? That's why it's really important to make sure in the sequence editor that we have one speaker at a time talking so that when we zoom out of the sequence editor, we see clearly speaker labels as well as their speech outlined in the script area. So that's a major reason why it's important to make sure that you have things aligned in the sequence editor. And just lastly on this, when you import files, if there is any like crosstalk or what we call mic bleed, there is an automatic setting there's an automatic catch for that. So if we do detect any mic bleed or what in the app will be called duplicate transcriptions, we'll suggest to you to fix that so that you do not have overlapping speech or anything in the script area that looks wonky and hard to edit. Cool. All right. Go ahead.
Do you want to show how did we get the speakers framed like that? Because we had a question in the chat earlier about how do you change the position? So say you want someone else, framed on the top above the captions or the bottom, which I think this clip will show when the scene changes.
Yeah, just to even show the smart transition, I'm just going to play this back really quick, but we'll see here the switching of the two, right? So I want to just show like how both elements move on screen and then how we can change the source camera so that we can select that without having to change a layout. But here, just to play this back, here's what this looks like with the scene change.
How can that one little pill make that big of a difference in my health?
It really can. The most recent studies we have are pretty definitive.
Cool. So what we saw is one layout where our speaker Angie was at top, and then now the second layout where our speaker Rem was on top. We can change the positioning or change who is where by right-clicking the camera feed, and we can choose the source here. So if I wanted the male speaker up top, I can click change source and then swap them here. Right? That is one way to do that. Now, if you're curious how we got to this framing, again, this would circle back to the layouts that we saw earlier. All of these layouts have a pre-framing for speakers. So here, this layout is called social to camera. This is a layout that is pre-made that has two speakers, captions in the center, and is framed for social content. The same thing goes down here for 3 camera, for 4 camera, for a single camera and text, for a single camera and captions, for a picture and captions, but your voice. So we have a layout for everything. I think the two things to remember is, one, if you are how do I get my video from landscape to portrait? Check out our layout packs that have that pre-framed for you. And then once you have the 2 speakers in frame, now I can right-click onto the speaker and then change source and choose who's who. But for the Marcelo workflow in my mind would be getting it to look like this first, and then picking where each person is second, just an ease of use, happy pathway kind of vibe. So again, I'm picking my layout, then I can say, okay, cool. Now I want Angie on tap. So boom, swap it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and if you're more of a manual person, you can see when he clicks that piece of media and it's selected with that purple outline, you can just drag it around the scene editor
Exactly. Yeah.
if you want it more custom.
Yeah, I can resize, I can click and drag, anything like that. I think the thing with layouts is that like that's a repeatable and saved motion, but that doesn't mean I can't freestyle it, right? The same thing that we saw with captions earlier. I can take a layout and adjust it to my heart's content. So like here, if I pick the 2-camera layout from earlier, right? Here, these two are framed. I change my source. I pick Angie here. I pick Ram here. Here, now I can, again, resize, reframe, and make it look like I had that layout beforehand. Here, by capturing the middle of the screen. And now the most important thing is if I wanted to, I can save this layout for future use. If I right-click the thumbnail in the script, here I have a Save Scene as New Layout button. So after I've taken the time to adjust layouts, I can always save that for future use for my projects. And then here on the right-hand side, when I do so, I'll be able to pick which layout pack that I save this to. I'll be able to name this scene. I can label it as well. So that's all here. One thing, I don't know if we talked about this like in depth, but like layout packs are groups of layouts. So like a layout, like one layout is like just this individual framing. But if I have a group of layouts that all kind of fit that same vibe, right? All of them have the same brand colors. All of them have the same font. All of them have the same, 2-speaker framing. I can create a layout pack that will like contain all those similar ones so I can quickly gather those. Like Erin mentioned at the top of the hour, we have a whole layout session coming up soon. So stay tuned for that. But just wanted to like give a quick heads up for those of like the important things are like layouts and then saving that so you don't have to like manually do it again.
Yeah, how to make your stuff look good with less effort. That's what it is.
So yeah, what he said. Perfect. All right, cool. I think that covers for most of what I have for us here. Maybe we should take a peek at some Q&A, answer some questions from the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out Alex in the chat who's crushing all the YouTube questions.
Big ups to Alex, one of our very strong support team members. Big love.
Yeah, and our Twitter viewers on X Live, we've got 94 people watching, which is awesome. So if you have a specific setup, framing, project type, something we did but didn't go in depth enough, throw that in. Another thing to mention, if Marcelo saved this layout with the 2 speakers framed and the captions, layouts are exclusive. So you don't want a layout that has captions and a layout that has your brand logo and a background. Layouts are singular, and once you put this layout on, any previous layout is overridden. So you want to make it have all the elements you'd want in that scene. How about editing captions across like an entire project?
Yeah, so let's go back to captions here on the right-hand side. So one thing that we've talked about across the session is like scenes and layouts, right? But when I click on captions, right, on the top of captions, I have the ability to apply captions to all scenes or just this scene. So one thing that this sometimes gets people a little confused because they might not be either familiar with scenes or might not even see this button here at the top of the screen. But if I want to apply captions to the totality of my video, I want to make sure that I have all scenes selected, and then I'll select the captions that I want. I'm just gonna remove these so we don't double up captions. But let's say I really like the waveform one that we saw earlier. I just think like the little waveform animation is cool. Harkens back to our audiogram feature from like when I first started, which is fun memories. But like here now I have this caption and these waveform across all my scenes. Now you'll notice as well, like when I go here to the properties panel and I am wanting, like we saw earlier, like I want to change the color of my captions, right? I'll see the same all scene and current scene button at the top of my properties panel and here under the scene editor. So that's one thing to keep in mind is that like if you are wanting to make a change across the totality of your project, you want to make sure that all scenes is selected rather than current scene, because any change I'm making in the current scene does not persist across all scenes, right? So here, now that I have all scenes selected, now I can change the color to the red that I was mentioning earlier, or the font to this, right? If I only had current scene selected, I'm only making that alteration to this first scene in this video rather than the whole thing. But again, that exact comment, like that exact concept happens across like almost anything you're editing in Descript, because like as soon as you add more than one scene, you'll need to select if I'm doing an action or like altering something from one or all of the scenes that the element is present in.
Yep. And you can see those scenes on his transcript because there's a little preview of the thumbnail at the start of each of those paragraphs where he put in the scene. How could I create a new scene? What if in the middle of Rem's paragraph there, I wanted a new scene? What's the easiest way to insert a scene?
Great question. So if I know like right here I want a new scene, I can click the / on my keyboard to introduce a new scene. That will, and like you mentioned, the little thumbnail in the script is how I visibly confirm that I've like added something. But again, / on my keyboard is how I can do that. Now, like as in my workflow, right? What I would normally do is here's like my unedited video. What I would do normally is I would go through first and I would do like a scene pass, right? So I know like, okay, here I want to change the visuals. 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 Cool. Now I've set where I want to change my visuals. Now, with the power of layouts, I can go back in and just change the framing with a couple of clicks. So here's where I knew I wanted to change the visuals, and I'll select default camera. Here's where I wanted to change the visuals, and now I want 2 speakers on screen. Here's where I wanted to change the visuals, and boom, right? So like this is where we really see the power of scenes and layouts together. Scenes being like the next slide in my deck, or like the next visual change indicator, and then the layouts being what I'm changing to.
Yeah, so if we distilled those down into rules to remember for somebody who goes, okay, I have a multi-track 2-speaker video and audio project. How do I, eat the whale one bite at a time? It sounds like the first one is make sure your sequence is correct. So that's where you'd be in the sequence editor. You're not worried about polish. You're just worried about the content and its alignment. And then you'd say the second one would be a layout pass, like go through with your / key and say, change scene. I might move them or put something else on screen here.
Yeah, exactly. I would say like that order just depends on where you're starting your recording. I think one of the major reasons that I recommend Rooms is so you do not have to think about the sequence editor, right? If you record with Rooms, then the sequence is automatically made for you. But if you are coming from another tool, like importing from Zoom or another remote call recorder, then yes, that is the exact workflow. Importing your media and transcribing, having that sequence automatically created or manually created. Then once we know that our speakers are aligned, going through for our visual pass. So doing those scene breakouts where I know what I want a camera to change, and then my layout pass actually selecting what that camera change looks like. Then from there, I can remove filler words. I can remove retakes. I can ask Underlord to generate a social clip for me using the reframing of the visuals. But that's like the Marcelo pathway, or like the probably the easiest way to get through editing a project from start to finish is either Rooms or import recording. Once your sequence is aligned, scene pass, layout pass, and then continue editing.
Yeah. And then the final one for me is use layouts. So
yeah,
there isn't one you already have. Take one that's pre-made and tweak it, but save it. That is also the topic for next week's webinar with Marcelo, where everything's going to be about layouts and making your look be repeatable without manual effort.
Absolutely. I'm really excited for that session. We have a lot of layouts, but yeah.
Yeah. Any final questions in the chat? If there's something you wanted to see, here's a question for you. What if I only have audio? What would be your preferred way or format for repurposing that, say, to like socials?
Yeah. So this is a really, really great question. So like what I would do in that scenario is like there are if there are people that are trying to go from audio to like a video production, like, right, I want to post to socials. All social medias currently require a video element, right? So I cannot just take a raw audio only recording and post that. I will need to have some visualization on screen. This is where I would use, and I talked about this kind of accidentally earlier, but this is where I would use like our audiogram feature if you wanted to utilize like a layout that you could put on socials. Where is it? Let me just search for here. We have a search tool in here as well, but like here's audiograms, right? Audiogram is just going to introduce like a little visual waveform. So something is expanding and contracting on screen when there's a speaker speaking. There's captions on screen, but like this is what I had done in the past. When I first started at Descript, we didn't have video; we just had this, right? So like this is what I use, and a lot of people use to take our audio only stuff into video form and just applying some visualization to that content so that you can go to socials. So even if you are, doing no camera on audio only recordings, we have still layouts that you can apply visuals, which will automatically fill a screen region and allow for you to post to socials like a TikTok, a LinkedIn, an X, or Twitter, whatever you call it. I think X and Twitter is going to be the new GIF debacle, but whatever. But side thing. But yeah, that's how to do that. That would be my take. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you could also do B-roll. I mean, the biggest one is find pre-made layouts or look at other creators and see what they do, and then bring your project into Descript and say, how could I recreate that? Yeah, absolutely. So we are at time, which means our biggest ask of you is to scan this QR code. It will take you longer to unlock your phone and open your camera than it will to fill out. It's 3 questions. One of the things we really try to do for our community is give them specific, precise topics. We don't just do the same thing with the same content on repeat, part of why all these are live. This one is a good example. We haven't done any multi-track editing sequence stuff before on a webinar. So if you have an idea like, hey, here's one I'd love to see a whole entire live stream on, throw that in there and we will actually make it. We also love to use our customers and audience projects, as fun as it is for us to record fake healthcare infomercials with or without wigs. If you have a podcast, a YouTube channel, a project that you're working on, you're like, hey, could you use my content and show me how to make social clips from a guest 2-person podcast recording? We absolutely will. 2 weeks ago, we did that for a live streamer. We're going to do layouts next week, which means snap things in, put my brand color, my logo, my captions are precise, and it's always repeatable with a click. If you or your company has a recording, a live stream, whatever, that you would want us to use, you can take all the clips and post them and do whatever you want with them. We will use those for our next week's content. Don't forget learn.descript.com as your helpful static guides instead of Marcelo and I live. It's on a web page, usually with like a screenshot and an explanation. You can also catch more Marcelo if you didn't get your fill this week from this hour. He hangs out in Discord at office hours, right?
Yep. We were just editing someone's project yesterday as an example as well. So another great session for us to take a peek at your content if you're open to it.
Yep. Our support also has weekly webinars where you can basically come in the chat and ask questions that are more, I'm stuck, how do I do this oriented? And we will make sure you get a recording of this one so that you can watch the whole thing if you joined late or had to dip out in the middle for lunch or to get rid of your cat that was meowing. Don't worry, you'll get the entire recording from us. And it'll be on our YouTube channel and everywhere else. More than anything, you gave us your most precious asset, which is your time. And for that, we sincerely appreciate you and look forward to hearing your feedback on how this went and what we can do next to make it Descript even better for you. Marcelo, thanks for joining us, man. Appreciate you going through a very complex project. A lot of good feedback in the chat. The live viewership, especially on Twitter/X, has been excellent today. So that's a reflection of you, man.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you again for having me. I love doing these. I love talking to people. I love working with everybody. So if you got questions, come back. You can't get rid of me. I'm doing these as long as they keep me around.
Yes. He's never going to run out of coffee either. And he won't talk slower. Don't ask. Thank you, everybody. We love to see what you make. Tag us on socials and give us a shout out so we can engage with your awesome content.
Oh yeah.